Time is now 6 p.m. on this Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. Call this public session to order.
Roberts.
Present.
Mr. Hodge.
Present.
Ms. Taylor.
Present.
Mr. Humphrey.
Present.
Ms. Williams.
Present.
And our student representative, Ms. Alice Belton.
Present.
Thank you. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Moving on to item number 2, the agenda. There's one correction we need to make. Item number 8.2. That's actually should be moved to item number 6, 6.02. The records reflect that. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the, or is there any other changes to the agenda? With that, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we adopt the agenda. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same privilege. The ayes have it. So we're moving on to item number 3, public comments. We have, it appears to be, we have 4 public comments tonight. For that, I'll give the floor to Mr. Campbell to discuss. Hold on.
Good evening. We'd like to thank you for attending tonight's Normandy Schools Collaborative Board of Education meeting. Before we begin, we will review the importance of conducting a productive and orderly meeting. For those community members in attendance who have signed up for public comments, please come to the podium when the board president calls your name. Out of respect for everyone in attendance, yelling, foul language, props, visuals, and addressing the audience are not permitted. Public speakers may not identify staff nor students by name. In addition, audience members are not allowed to speak, yell, or cause any disruption during public comments. This ensures the Board of Education is able to listen and transition to the next speaker. The remainder of the meeting is designated for the board to work with the superintendent and staff to conduct the work as outlined in the agenda. Patrons who stay in attendance for the remainder of the meeting after public comments do so in an observatory role. Please note that those who disrupt the meeting in any capacity will be asked to leave and may lose the opportunity to attend future meetings. Thank you for attending, and now we will proceed with the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Our first speaker is Ms. Venezia Medley. Medley? Ms. Medley. Okay. We'll proceed with the other speaker. The next one, Ms. Jakia Gentry. Ms. Gentry. Ms. Gentry. Ms. Brittany Watkins. Ms. Watkins? Ms. Watkins. All right. And the final speaker, Ms. Deanna Davis. Ms. Davis? Thank you.
Good evening.
My name is Deanna Davis Day. I am a parent, a former employee, and a Normandy alumni. And at this time, we understand the staffing shortage is nationwide, but this turnover rate at our school district is entirely too high. This creates a ripple effect, which our children feel in the worst way, both academically and social emotionally. In October of 22, our board approved the hiring of to be our sole provider for substitute teachers. When the ESS was pitched to the board, they used phrases like 100% fill rate and accountability. We've seen nowhere close to 100% fill rate. We've seen nowhere close to any accountability. We've seen no statistics. We've seen no statistics, no accountability. When they were hired, we were told that Ferguson and Riverview had just recently let them go. So I really don't understand why we even hired them, but we did. And none of our neighboring districts are using outside agencies to house their substitutes. In the community, I've never come across an ESS ad. All of the ads that I've come across are one minority. We sent our substitutes over to them and agreed to pay them for our substitutes that we already had. So at this time, we do their advertising, we provided them with our substitutes, and they're just collecting a check off of the work that we do. While our schools are still pulling in counselors and social workers, when teachers are out. And our counselors and social workers, we pay them a lot of times close to $100,000 per year for their credentials and their expertise. So using them to substitute instead of the jobs that they were hired to do is a disservice to our entire community. We see us we hire people, companies, and agencies, and we never hold them accountable. And our kids feel it the worst. Our kids are definitely feeling this. And again, we still refuse to listen to parents. We've still not seen any parent meetings, any parent support groups or anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. I believe Ms. Watkins just entered the room. Is Ms. Watkins here? Ms. Brittany Watkins?
No, it's Medley.
Oh, Ms. Medley, sorry. Ms. Renethia Medley?
I'm here in place of Ms. Watkins. We are the parents for the girls' basketball team. And we wanted the girls to come and speak because nobody kind of heard from them about what they felt. The ball was kind of dropped with the basketball team. Today was supposed to be their practice day. They've had one practice since the situation happened with the basketball coach. 4 of their games have been canceled, and nobody has talked to them about like how they feel or what's been going on with them at the middle school. These 2 young ladies, they were in the classroom with the child that had the gun, and they were also on the basketball team. So nobody is asking them, are you okay? How do you feel? Like, so I'm going to let them talk.
My name is Chloe Nesby.
Mic, please.
Pull it down.
You pull it down.
And how I feel about the situation is that because of one person, or because of 2 people that decided to do what they were doing, and then nobody else knew about it. And she tried to bring the rest of our coaches down or something like that.
My name is Mackenzie Watkins, and how I feel about the situation is, our 2 coaches, Coach Frankie and Coach Aaron, should be suspended and accountability.
Hold on.
And I also feel like we deserve to have our coaches back. We tried to protest, but that didn't work. And we also tried to be honest, but I know that also didn't seem to get the attention. And I feel like we just deserve our coaches back because they didn't have anything to do.
Can I do this for a second? Can I do one of these next?
Yeah.
Ladies, thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate your bravery in standing in front of these folks. I want you to know that all of these people here, including myself and the people who are sitting here today, work for you. You understand that? It's Chloe and McKinsey, is that right? We work for you, and your voice is extremely important. And we didn't have a chance to hear everything that you said. Would you mind if I ask you, if we can restart the clock, if you could restate your names and tell us exactly what you want us to hear again? Would you do that for us?
Not saying names correctly, Mr. Roberts. No, I mean, names of coaches and students.
No.
We're not supposed to say that. No names.
The way that I feel is that
The way that I feel about this situation is, I feel, like I said before, it shouldn't, the action that happened with the other coach shouldn't go on two other coaches that had nothing to do with the situation and didn't know about the situation. And as I said before, we tried to protest, we wrote our statements down about how we felt, and no one seemed to get the attention of how we felt about the situation. So I feel that we should be able to get our coaches back and work harder to get our coaches back.
We brought the young ladies, and the gentlemen on the scene, they wrote letters, but the principal took the letters. They also wanted to do a protest, a silent protest, but they were told if they protested, they were going to be expelled. So they didn't protest. They have been with Coach Aaron and Coach Rankin for the last 3 years. Before them, there was not a basketball program.
No names.
Excuse me.
Okay, no names, but they have been with the coaches for 3 years. Before that, there was no basketball program. They came from Jefferson, where they weren't being taught anything. So what they did was combine the schools together to make sure that the kids were learning what they needed. Without any practice, they have won 3 games from what they have been learning from their coaches. The coach that they put with them hasn't had any practice, and she's not really doing anything with them. We were told that things would continue to go on the way that they were, as usual, but they haven't. They had practice today, were supposed to have practice today, but there was no practice. Their practice days are Tuesday and Thursday and Saturday. None of that has happened. So someone has dropped the ball on our girls, and we're just saying, like, as parents, no one has even contacted us to let us know anything, that anything happened. All we know is what the children told us. We don't know, like, that it's being investigated or anything, so we just have to believe the words of our youth. So we're just trying to find out what we can do to make sure that they get what they need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chloe, maybe, are you ready to help? Is there something else that we need to understand? Got 10 seconds on this clock as I see it. Okay.
All right. Thank you for your comments. They have been noted, and we appreciate your commitment. All right, moving on to item number 4, Mr. Trahan, public recognition.
Good evening, Board President, Superintendent and Board President, please come up. Have you stand here. We're going to do things a little bit differently tonight because we've got a lot of recognitions and we want to make sure that we capture that as well. Superintendent, Board President, to come up and hand out the recognitions. First recognition we'd like to recognize tonight, and that's 6th grade at Barack Obama student Bart Baker to come up, please. So Bart Baker, sixth grader at Barack Obama, recently won an art contest sponsored by the County Department of Health. His winning artwork is featured in the 2024 Healthy Living Calendar, which is shared with county residents to initiate discussions and encourage healthy habits, including tips for beneficial hygiene habits, healthy eating, and just how to be a good friend to others. Bart also received a poster for his work, 4 calendars, and he received a gift card to the St. Louis Zoo. He was encouraged to enter his artwork by our art teacher, Christian Hussein, who is here as well, so we wanted to. Next round of recognitions, we want to recognize our student athletes. We can have Marla James, Adam Nurmad, and Jacoby Rhodes. Please come forward. Student athletes are senior wrestlers who received medals for their outstanding performance for the season after their last meet, which was held January 17th. We also want to recognize Marla James, who also received a trophy for his. Recognize Coach Baker, who's here, and Gerald Nave, principal.
Mr. Trahan, can we ask which one is Mr. James? All right.
Asking Mr. Nave to stay because we want to highlight another Normandy High School student, senior, who's here and is here every week, every month for our meetings. Alexandra Belton, who is our board student representative. I want to recognize Alex for taking home the gold medal at the 2024 Family Career Community. Held in January. She won gold in first place for the 2023 regionals, same contest, and won bronze in the national first silver. Sorry. We move on. I just wanted to mention also, Alex is a rising star, shining star at Normandy High School. What some people may not know is that Alex used her culinary talents in January when she prepared a repast for Markeisha Williams for more than 100 people. She was not asked to do this. She offered, she contacted the family and wanted. So we want to invite Zachary Harrell, Eric Neal, Nane Nadaye, sorry if I messed up, and Mr. Justin Mitchell up from Normandy High School. They're here. So these students from Normandy High School were awarded Young Voices in Action, they announced the Dr. Martin Luther King Essay Contest. They were winners as part of the annual Mid-St. Louis County activities honoring Dr. King's life in January. We also want to recognize Mr. Farrakhan Shagag, who I don't believe is his work with our students and also for planning the events in January. Right, up next, this is the form of the Mr. Christopher Daniels, who is a teacher at the middle school at Normandy, and Aaron McMullen to the Mr. Daniels is a teacher at Normandy Middle School at Lucas Crossing. He premiered his feature film Missing in STL on January 26. The film focuses on the dangers and impact of human trafficking and sheds light on this critical issue that affects communities worldwide. The film used local actors, including our own Lucas Crossing Middle student, Aaron McMullen. The film is available on Amazon Prime and will be held in local theaters through February 7th. I'd like to invite up next Dr. Lenore Payne from the Early Learning Center, Amora Washington, and Chloe Schultz.
This is Amir Washington here.
Amir Washington, my apologies. These two students are being spotlighted and highlighted for their determination and eagerness to learn at the Early Learning Center.
Good evening, esteemed school board superintendent, community members. My two students are being highlighted tonight, which I'm very excited for. First of all, I need Ms. Jones and Ms. Winkleman to stand up because Ms. Jones is Chloe's preschool teacher and Ms. Winkleman is I'm gonna start with Ms. Chloe. Chloe comes to school every day very eager to learn. She's very sweet. She's a great helper in the classroom. And Chloe is at the point now where she's becoming a very strong reader. Ms. Jones works very hard, not only with Chloe, but with all of the students in her classroom. So Chloe is doing a phenomenal job of learning her CPC words and sight words. So she has a very strong foundation to become a strong reader and to excel when she goes to kindergarten. And I just enjoy watching her in the classroom. She gives me hugs every morning. And I just have to highlight my preschool team because a lot of people, when it comes to early childhood and preschool, people think it's fun. But we're doing some real work across the street in our preschool program. And my entire preschool team, like we've already met our yearly goals because our goal was 95% of our students meeting their benchmark for ELA and math, and they've already surpassed that. Congratulate them because they're doing a phenomenal job and they make my job that much easier because of the dedication that they have to the students in the classroom. With my buddy Amir, I just love him dearly. He's a very fun kid. What I love about Amir, he takes his academics very seriously. We could place Amir in the second grade classroom right now and he would already meet second grade expectations. Right. But he takes his academics very seriously. What I love about him is that he is still a kid. Like he still plays and he still enjoys being at school, and sometimes he don't recognize his own strength. And, we have to work on that, but, at the end of the day, he is a great helper in the classroom. He's in a unique situation because Ms. Winkleman is his homeroom teacher, and she teaches math, and Ms. Dancy is and her and Ms. Winkleman, they team teach. So Ms. Winkleman does math with her class and with Ms. Dancy's class. Ms. Dancy does ELA with her class and Ms. Winkleman class. And so they both here, and even when he gets defeated because he doesn't like getting problems wrong, remind him, that it's okay to make mistakes. But I really enjoy the fact that, he's not only a leader within our school, but he's a leader for the district because he's our representative for the Student Advisory Council. And he really enjoys that. And Miss Alexandria, they spoil my buddy. And so he really, when he leaves those meetings, he comes back to the school feeling like a king because they really embrace him. But he's very active at those meetings too. So I just wanted to say, please at any time, if you all have any time, come check us out across the street because we're doing some phenomenal work in preschool and in kindergarten. My kindergarten team is knocking it out the park. We're on track to meet our yearly goals as well because our goal for kindergarten is 75% of our students meeting ELA and math standards. And right now in ELA, we're at 63%. And in math, we're at 53%, so we're definitely on track for meeting our goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Payne. Congratulations to you all for your recognition and continued work. Moving on to item number 5, items for information. District scorecard and solution tree update.
Good evening, community and board members, of course. I just want to give you a brief breakdown on how the district performed on the 2022-2023 assessment. Every time I give presentations, you will always see this mission because I truly believe that our missions have to live not only within the district, but within ourselves as well. So you'll always see what the norm. I want to preface these 4 definitions up here because these are important. When people start talking about our kids scoring below basic, proficient, and advanced, this is what they're saying. So when we look at these scores and those words like advanced, proficient, basic, and below, you know what they're talking about. Behind the terms. Now, how are points allocated? If you look at this first one, you see ELA, you see math, you see science, and social studies. You see target, on track, approach, and floor. These are the points that the state assigns to all districts in the scoring realm. And there's a formula for calculating that gets us to these points that creates the overall points for the point system. So this is probably slow, so small, and you can't read if you're blind like me. But on this area over here, this is 2022. And board, I want if you could follow me. This is 2022 on the left corner. The right corner is 2023. Now we got some good spots in our presentation, and we have some bad spots in our presentation. I want to be as transparent as I need to be because you need transparency. If you look at ELA, the district did fairly well in ELA. So that means our kids are reading much better than they have been in the previous year. So there's about if you see below basic at 47.3%, below basic in 2022, then 2023 you see the same below basic, but you see the percentage rates drop. That means those numbers moved somewhere. You see, basic, for the same time period, it dropped. But what went up is our proficient scores. Our advanced stayed the same, but our proficient scores went up. So that means we had more students moving from below basic and basic to proficient area. So that's a really bright spot for us. Math wasn't so good. We took a nosedive in math almost. We lost 1% and we lost 0.7% in our proficient and advanced. So that means we have some work to do in that area. Science, whenever you see these dots over here, what it means is we didn't have enough students scoring in those areas. So let's say, I don't know why they do that, the state does that, but let's say proficient. Maybe we had 1 student or 2 students score proficient. That number was too low to be calculated in the equation, so they just put stars there. At any rate, our scores went the wrong direction in those areas too, for science and social studies. Now, for social studies, below basic went down and basic went up, so that means we had some movement in the right points. We would get achievement points, not only growth points in that area. Here's what's important. These 2 areas here, can everybody say the green dot up there floating around? Yes, no? Okay. So these 2 areas are important. Why? This is 2022, 2023. This first column are the points assigned to each district. The second column are the points that we earned. So if you look in, math is the same, English is the same. Math is the same, math went down. We went up about 0.4% points in English. Science, I don't want to go through the whole thing, but the bottom line is our scores moved in the right direction. Last year, we didn't get any points in ICAP, attendance, CTE, or timely submission of our MOSIC. Those are points given to you. All you have to do is submit the right paperwork and you get the points. So we didn't get that in 2022, but we got those points in 2023. That means that we were able to submit our detailed information to DESC in a timely fashion. These are graduation rates. And why is this important? It's important because this is how you get a bulk of your college and career readiness points through your graduation rate. So the lower this number here is, the fewer points you get. Now I want to be clear. High school can get a lot of district points without even an academic score. Through college and career readiness, high school, the district can be proficient with an academic point. So this is how important graduation rates are in college and career readiness is for the district. So I want to show this screen right here because last year we had 76-22. We had 76% of our students graduated 4 years. And this year, of 2023, we had 53.6 now. Here's where the growth was. In our 5th-year graduation rates last year, 68%. Our 5th-year graduation rates in 2023 was 80%. What that means is, after we found out that students were not going to graduate on time, we immediately took action and put those students in for the summer, and we were able to graduate about 40 seniors. So that was major. That's why this number is much higher than that number, by about 11.5%. Okay, now here's where the rubber meets the road. If you notice, this is important. This first column is important. This is 22, this is 23. You have possible points and points earned. If you notice, points earned It's continuous improvement. In 2022, we got 100 points. If you look at points earned in 2023, we got 105 points. So you ask yourself, how come our percentage points, our APR, annual performance report, why is it lower in 2023 than 2022 when we got more points? Well, points in 2022, the possible points were 180. Last year, the possible points are 192. Next year, the possible points are going to be, I believe, 202, 204. Again. So we have to have some really strong numbers to make sure we can hold on to our scores and increase this annual percentage, performance percentage rate.
Dr. Tripp. Questions? Ms. Pearson?
So the next board meeting, we'll have an update on the solution tree around what they're doing in the district and how to provide the services for the district. But I can say that during this.
I was trying not to be
proceed. Bus in.
I'm very sorry.
This is solution tree.
Yeah, this is solution tree. But we had, do you have questions?
Yeah.
For who?
So we're gonna, Solution Tree is gonna present it, then we'll field questions then, or do we?
We can ask questions now.
Okay, so why don't we wanna go ahead?
Okay. Is there a reason why CASA wasn't, added into any of these, or is it?
CASA's numbers go to the high school.
Okay. And then the next question was, I know that you wasn't here fully for 20. What is the reason why we didn't receive certain, points in 2022?
Well, performance because of performance. And then we have some automatic points like submission of timely reports. We have attendance points, ICAP points, those kinds of things. So when that information is not submitted to the state or put in core data, you don't get credit.
So are you saying that the paperwork wasn't submitted in time for them to be counted? Thank you. That's my question.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Ms. Williams?
Yeah, I have an observation.
You might.
I just have an observation. We look at, well, in my presentation, it's slide 5, but this is what I'm talking about. The status, DLA, and mathematics. The English language arts part in particular, because the rest of it is similar. And certainly our outcomes are unacceptable. We must do better. In 2013-14, we were classified as unaccredited because of our low test scores. Later, and at that time, somewhere around 30. But 10 years later, 12% of our children are under the state's oversight. 12% of our students are now proficient. Also to look at something else. And I hope this doesn't get us, me or you all in trouble, but I want you to look at something else. If you look at the student group for the state in 2023, or 2022 rather, 74% of the student group, our student group, is below proficiency. The same thing happened the next year. More than 70% of the children are below proficiency. I wonder how, with that scorecard at the state level. How they thought they were going to make us here. This is something I've been talking about for a number of years. And it is so clear here. The state of Missouri is not educating this student group. And when they classified us as accredited, over, and we had state oversight, and we would do that. Obviously, in the state of Missouri, we're not educating our student group well, period. But we have districts that are fully accredited, teach with less than half of their student group, our student group, proficient. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Humphrey?
Well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. I think one of the things that would kind of help me, because when I look at 22 and 23 map data, it's good data, but it's also a lag indicator because we all know that it comes later in the year, and none of this data can, technically inform instruction because of the fact that it comes later. One of the things I was looking for, and hopefully we'll see it in the future presentation, is begin to understand what our benchmark data is. Because our ready is that piece of data that we're using internally to kind of monitor where we are in preparation for the map. And so as I look at this, it only took me so far. It allowed me to see what we've done in the past, and I don't have a good sense of where we currently are based on this data. So I would ask that we would have a sense of urgency to bring that information forward so we can have a clear indication. Because I think we did January, I think the next time we do one is in.
We did the first already in the fall, and I presented that already.
Okay.
I presented recently passed.
Right, in January.
Yeah, so that data has not been disaggregated to the point where we can do a comparative analysis. So I wanted the board to see, or wanted the community to see how we function with the high stakes exam. We'll get enough how we're performing on the benchmark part.
Right, and I can appreciate this presentation because it clearly, the data says what the data says. But I'm more interested in our comparison because if the last one in December or the fall is our baseline, the next, forward every already with all the work that we're doing around Solution Tree and the other things we're doing with new curriculum, we should begin to start seeing traction of that work. So at this point, that's my observation. We just need to see that information sooner rather than later.
But although I'm optimistic, I want to be cautious around our projections and our calculated projections, because just in case we have things doesn't necessarily mean people are honest around things. And so there's a lot of other work that weighs into foundational things. So I want to make sure that I'm transparent. Sure I'm giving the right information. Yes, we have these tools in place, but people have to be trained properly on these tools, and they don't happen overnight. And so, which is one of the reasons our partnership with consultants like Solution Tree to assist us with this endeavor, to help try and fast track some of those things. And so, where you may not see big changes the first year, because that's a foundation year, you really have to lay facts down for what you're doing. Like we didn't have social studies adoption in 10 years, or we haven't using the same ELA or math curriculum. And so you have to put those things in place and train people on how to use those things before you can really, really see some
At the end of the day, the data is going to say what the data says. Whether or not,
Agreed.
Whether or not we reality, whether or not we just start moving curriculum, all of those things to me are important, but yet not important. We need to look at the data to see what the data says, and then we can begin to make adjustments from there. So I won't belabor the point I'm arguing. The sooner we see that and understand wherever we are, I think it'll help us move in the direction we need to be in. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Humphrey. Ms. Ted?
Thank you. I'm thinking back on all of the meetings that we had, all of the information that you have given to us. And my mind seems to go back to the previous superintendents. As Ms. Sheila said, over the last 10 years, we have been unaccredited. And so it makes us think that what is it the teachers that are not doing the work? Has enough pressure been put on them to say, hey, the children are, we're coming here, we want our children to learn. And so just looking at the data, listening to what's being said, for me, I'm thinking it has to be, there's some failure somewhere. And I don't want to use the word failures that, the teachers are not doing their job. But something is happening in there, and it's happening within our children. And something is happening, we need to find out what it is, that will, I don't know, there's something missing. There's something missing. And whatever it is, our children are not grabbing hold to it, because I believe that the teachers, when they come to school every day, they're giving their best. They're giving their best. But then I think it also goes back to when our children go home from school, making sure that the parents are involved with their children as well. That's what I wanted to add. So I just think that something has happened with, we know our past, we know the things that have happened. And I think that there is something that's missing, that our children are not grabbing hold of it. Maybe someone is not saying to them, education is the most important thing that you can get, and maybe they're not getting it.
Well, for starters, there's a system. Start there, and and to everybody, leadership matters. And so when leadership matters, then that person creates systems and foundations that work. And see, when you don't have those foundational things, then you have concerns like that.
And I just also like to add to that, you have given us quite a bit of information. You've given us your visions and your goals. And so we're just hoping, and believing and praying that those visions, those goals, those things that you have in mind for our children, that those things are going to come to pass. Because we, like I said, we have nothing but the best for our children. That's what we look for, nothing but the best for our children.
Mr. Hodge.
Thank you, Dr. Triplett. These scores are always troubling, humbling for us. I just want to make it clear that these are all of our scores. All of our scores. People in this room, the people in this district, the people in this community, these belong to all of us. Our responsibility tonight to provide encouragement and direction. And I certainly hope that we will do this from this point forward tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge. I have a
I'm Dr. Jerry Martin. I'm 20 years an elementary teacher and an elementary principal, so definitely understand this world. But currently, I'm standing in front of you as the Executive Vice President of Solution Tree. And here, I have to say, I'll get my smile off my face in a minute, but I'm just so excited about what you just said, because it fits in so well with what this district is trying to do this year. You talked a lot about history and what's been happening, and now all of a sudden the scores still aren't where you want them to be, but there is so much great work going on in your district, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So Solution Tree is a publication and a professional development company, but what we do is we take authors' work and authors that are national and international authors and have seen repeated success of their work, and we learn how to grow that work and apply it to districts. We are in all 50 states in the United States and then also in some other countries. But the work that your district is doing right now is the author's name is Dr. Sharon Kramer. And Dr. Sharon Kramer has been in education for almost 40 years. And what she has done is turn around schools and districts. And then, as she was turning around schools and districts, what she did was the principals and the superintendents in the schools and districts that saw the turnaround happen, she has now hired those people to work with other schools. So we're doing kind of a success situation. And your district, Normandy School District, was actually very proactive because they knew that the scores that were going to come out were not scores that you all really want to see for your kids. And so we actually started this work when school started, last August. And so I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about all the work that's been happening to this day. But I want to do one more precursor on that, and that is, so in each of your schools, before school started, what we did was we looked at the data for what kind of school it was looked like, what was your student demographic, what were the strengths and the weaknesses, and then we paired a coach to work in that school. Well, every coach, like I said, has turned around a school or a district themselves, multiple schools or districts. And now they're working side by side with your principals, because when Dr. Triplett was talking about leadership matters, it really does. And when you talk about teachers, you were right when you said they are working their rear ends off. They're working so hard. But what we know is that you also have to focus on the right things to get the results that you want. And that's what we're trying to help with. So you received a packet. I'm going to that has some of this information. But you actually have a packet, and inside that packet, there's a portion of it for every school in the district and what they've been working on since from August to now. Two things need to happen. When you talk about lagging indicators, I love that you brought that up, because yes, the data should be the indicator that we're all striving for, but there's got to be the things that happen that lead you to that indicator. And so really we separated into two separate pieces. So you've got to have the implementation of the work to have that happen first, and then as that implementation happens, you start seeing the data changes. And even your preschool administrator that was talking, all of your administrators and teachers are really looking at data now. And he could just spout out, what our math data looks like, here's what our reading data looks like, here's where we are at this point in the year. That's a really strong indicator that we're looking at data to move that lagging indicator change. So let me tell you just a little bit about this. In your packet, here's how the district has put all of the things together. So we do what we call, the priority school services. That's what's on the slide right now. But they're at all different levels. So there's building level services, and there's more descriptions about these in your packet. And in the building level services, we start every year with a needs assessment. We want to know, where is this building? We work with the district as a whole, but we want to take a building from where it is to where it needs to go, because we know contextually it matters. So we do a needs assessment. From the needs assessment, we plan out the rest of the year. We do a project planning. But then we chunk out the rest of the year into what we call 30, 60, 90-day plans. So we've already been into our second and third cycle of 30, 60, 90-day plans. It's not enough to, and hope and prayers are wonderful things, but they don't always get us where we want to go. We want to look at data and action steps every 30 days and see if growth is occurring. Then there's embedded coaching. What embedded coaching means, that's what I was explaining, that these people come into your building, they sit side by side with the administrators, they sit side by side with your teachers. They figure out what it is that needs to be worked on, and they try to provide that on-the-spot help. And then there's content coaching, both literacy and mathematics, especially mathematics right now. You're not the only one in a mathematics problem. And then there's also unit planning and design, and what we call step-up days, which is all making sure that we're doing the right thing at the right time for the kids. And I'll talk to you. So, and then we also have administrator and district level training. So it's not just we do the teachers, we do the administrators, we pull all the administrators together. your district office and work with them as a group. We work with your superintendent. So everybody is in on what needs to be happening in the classrooms in each school in your district. All of this work is focused on these 9 areas, and there's so much research behind these 9 areas. Culture of success. Sometimes that's the biggest thing that we have to change. That is the belief that we can do what we need to do, and that everybody's on board for that. So we focus on success, we engage in the right work, and the right work is wrapped around 4 critical questions that are listed here. One is we have to determine what it is that we want our students to learn. We need to make it priority about what does a first grader need to know to be able to be successful when they leave first grade. Not a wealth of content, but the specific skills they need to know. Just, may I borrow some water? The second question is, how will they know that they've learned it? This is a lot of this conversation. What is the assessment that's going to tell us that they've learned what they needed to learn? The third question is, how will we respond when students don't learn? It's not enough that we know whether they learned it or not, but what actions are we taking? And the fourth one, and this is that proficient, and it's the, whatever the fourth category is of the data, and that is, what are we going to do there? We don't need to be reteaching it. We need to be stretching those students that need to be stretched. And then the last 3 on here, shifting from all to each. We talk a lot about all students need to learn, but we need to take it one step further. You've got to focus on the individual student. You need to know what this student needs to know to learn and what that student needs to know to learn. So we switch from the all to each. We make leadership a priority. We engage students in their own learning. Those are the 9 different categories. This is the big overview. The first year, the thing that we work on the most is engaging in the right work. That's that second priority continuum. And engaging in the right work is actually really a combination of all of it. It's creating collaborative teams, having teachers working on the right work to know and show that students are making, that they're making with their students. And then this is also in your packet. This is another thing that I love about Normandy. Normandy jumped right in and said, okay, this is great. You work with all our schools, know what their priorities are, help them move forward. But we're a district, and we need to work as a district too. So we need to make sure that we've got some common goals. So they helped us create common school goals. And I won't read all of these, but if you look through that, you're going to see the word collaboration, collaboration, collaboration so many times. I have to tell you, as teachers, we weren't taught to collaborate. We go through schools as individual teachers, and you're going to have your classroom, and you focus on your classroom. We now know, and there's so much research out there, that the thing that helps make teachers the best is when teachers are working together with other teachers. When they have that time to come together and look at their data and say, hey, your kids got 80% and higher on this exam, my kids got 60% average. What did you do that I should have done? Because my kids should be getting that 80% too. That's just one example. But that's how we start pulling that collaborative effort together. And then the building leadership goals, once again. So as for building leaders too, how are we going to work them so everybody's working together in the same direction, doing the same thing? So like I said, you'll see every school name, and there will be a list of progress that they have made from when we started in August until January. And you're right, that the next report that we usually make, this is the report on the implementation, and the next report is once you get your mid-year data done, but you just got it finished. But once that mid-year data is done, then we look and see what kind of growth occurred. And if the growth didn't occur that we expected, we immediately make changes. We don't wait to look at the end of the year data. We make changes now so that we can get the end of year data that we want. There's district leadership goals too, once again, and I kind of already mentioned this, that it all ties together. Building level teachers, building level admins, district.
Thank you. Ms. Pearson.
You stated that Dr. Sharon Kramer is who's basically leading our its performance. Have she ever worked for urban schools?
Absolutely. And I wish she was here. All of these, no, I won't say all of the coaches. The majority of the coaches absolutely have. Sharon worked in there's probably people here that know more about where she's worked specifically, but a lot in Southern, in Riverview. We're working in Riverview Gardens right now. We started there last year. But she's worked in South Chicago and Northern Michigan. I can sit here and name it all the time, but yes. So let's make it easy.
Ms. Williams?
Were you able, when you started back in August, were you able to do any baseline assessment on these processes? Were they already happening in the schools or not happening?
Absolutely. So there's 9 continuums, and we evaluated each school on all 9 continuums. In your packet, you'll see there's some schools that worked a lot on creating collaborative structures in their school, because that was the first thing that they needed in place. I was just reading about, there's one school in there, though, that actually moved right into working on their standards and the curriculum for kids, because they already had collaborative structures in place. And so we do for adults just exactly how we preach for kids. Don't expect all kids to be the same learner. We have to know how they learn best, where their needs are, and take them from there. And we do that same thing with teachers and with buildings.
I was glad to say that, because I was going to ask you 2 of your 4 questions, but that's okay. You answered them all. Who developed the progress reports? Was that the coach?
Dr. Kramer did.
Okay.
She has a, what we call associates. And like I said, you can't be an associate unless you've done the work. You have 3 years of proven student achievement data, at least 3 years of student achievement data, and all the processes in place. Then you can apply to be an associate, which is what we call coaches when we put them in schools. And I forgot the question.
It's okay. I have 2 others. Part of your presentation says something about focus on variables within their control to ensure student growth. What are some of those variables when you tell them?
For a teacher, those actually do fit very easily into those 4 questions. We know that in the past, we've tried to teach all the curriculum and all the state standards that are expected of us and district standards, and all kids can't learn that much information. And so what we do with the curriculum is to look at the teachers sit down and work with your central office to figure out, but what are the standards that kids must have? We want to teach it all, but what are those things that kids must learn? And then then we move to that second stage. So what kind of an assessment do we need? And here's a big gap that we found in a lot of schools. Teachers would make great assessments, making assessments that were as stringent as the state test. So kids were being successful in their classroom and failing the state test. And so that's a piece that falls into that second question. And then the third one is really the biggest, and that is, don't assume that all kids are the same. I keep saying that, but it is develop a tiered process for supporting kids. Tier 1 is what you give all kids. And if it's strong enough, you should have 80% of your kids in that Tier 1 level. Tier 2 are the kids that didn't get it just by the Tier 1 instruction. So give them some intervention, give them some support. Tier 3 should be a very small group, but it's those kids that really didn't get it, and they need some even additional support. So you layer your support for your students based on their needs.
So they're controlling the objectives, the assessment of those objectives.
And the interventions.
Okay. Last one. It says that you're going to close the achievement gap. Which gap are we attempting to close?
Well, actually, we look at it in a variety of ways. Most important, really, and that's what Dr. Triplett is doing too, is we look what the state expectations are. And it's not that we want to bow down and do what the state says, although I work at the State Department too, and we work really hard there too. But it is that we know that that's what's going to promote success. That's where we're going to get accreditation. That's where we're going to be accredited with distinction. We have to watch those numbers and that state test to make sure that we get those things that will most help our kids.
So the gap is between where we are and what?
And where, well, we do it on growth. People always say, well, we're at 12%, but we need to be at 100%. Well, I'll tell you right now that there's probably not a teacher in your district that hasn't been trying for that 100%, but it hasn't worked. So we actually look at what's a reasonable, we call them SMART goals, and in SMART goal, the A in SMART goal is attainable. What is something that would be attainable in the next 3 months? Okay, then now, when we've reached that, what's our next attainable goal? So we move kids up, or we move goals up incrementally based on where are they now? We know where we want to be, that's 100%. But what's reasonable to start moving up toward that 100%?
So, thank you, Ms. Williams.
Yes, I think, first of all, thank you for your presentation. As I looked at the presentation, it was very process-rich, where I understood clearly what was happening at the various stages. I think one of your slides, as you talked about it, it kind of reminded me of the pyramid of intervention in terms of what would you do when children are not learning. Two things for me stood out. One, in the level of assessment that you've been doing, building by building, district by district, have you come any closer to understanding what the root cause analysis is for underperformance academically?
That's a really great question, and I would like to say that we have that answer. I don't have it for you right now. But in our needs assessment, that's where we understand where those gaps are. So I can definitely pull that together for you, and I just don't have it on the top of my head. But I can tell you what we discovered when we first started as those root causes. And I can also tell you what are common causes within this process that we are doing, which is called Priority Schools at Work. And those actually tie into those 9 continuums. And so I mentioned some of them, but those are the common causes. For example, number 1, simply being so downtrodden that we're not success driven. That's the number 1 continuum. How do we make sure that we promote our own success? And we get into this cycle of negativity, and so we kind of ourselves. So that would be one root cause. Another root cause, when I'm talking about the curriculum and using standards that are teachable, and being able to identify what each child must have at each grade level to be successful in the next grade level. That is definitely a national root cause for schools that are underperforming. So I can get you those, but I can also get you specifically, what did we see when we came in this district?
Yeah, I think it's important to see that because as you talked about, we're coming to a critical point when you talk about the mid-year assessment. Because on the front end, if you start out looking at root cause analysis, and then it actually ties into that, there's 3 things that tie together. The root cause analysis, your mid-year assessment, and then you also talk about the 30, 60, 90-day plans that are being developed by. So I think it's important for us to understand the data around, look at the beginning of the year, now we're at midpoint, and how does that midpoint data impact what they're doing 30, 60, 90 at the school level. So.
Absolutely, and I'm going to refer you into that document because when it says progress for each school, that will tell you the implementation progress from August to now. And then, like I said, as soon as we have the mid-year data, we'll add mid-year data to that, and then we can look and say, okay, if we said we were getting this progress through our implementation, is the data showing us what we would expect it to? And then that's where we make immediate adjustments if it's not, or have super celebrations if it is.
And that's why the data for me is very important because, like I said, the presentation is very process-rich. It talks about what's being done at the various stages, but now it's time to see where the road meets the road.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Cole.
I will, just one real quick, we do this all over the nation in hundreds of schools. I will tell you that in the first year, we always ask for a little bit of leeway because we're making so many changes through the process and the implementation that the data, it takes a while to get the data where we want to. We love it when we see the exact results we want to see in the first year. We're extremely worried about it if we don't see it in the second year, but it's very rare that we don't see it in the second year.
Right, but I guess my biggest thing is that just clearly understanding the baseline where we're starting from so we can begin to see what the trajectory looks like.
Absolutely.
Ms. Taylor.
Thank you. I know when we voted to accept Solution Tree to come on board, and I personally asked for some data. I don't believe that I ever received it. But from the presentation that you've made today, it sounds like there have, you said, success stories from other districts. And I agree with Mr. Humphrey. We really want to see something, you know, we want to be able to see something that we can sit down and say, hey, okay, this, they're saying this is a success rate, and we'd like to see that. And just from the presentation, I enjoyed the presentation, and looking forward to seeing where it is going to take our children, because we know where we're trying to go. And so it sounds, you know, from everything that you said, everything that's been put out there, we're looking and we're waiting. And like you just made a comment, we should not expect too much in the first year. We do expect growth. Absolutely, we do expect that. And so we're willing, you know, we're willing to wait, and we're, you know, hoping that we get to, what was it, a 3-year contract?
Yes.
It was a 3-year contract, and so we get to the end of that 3-year contract. Hopefully, we can be one of those school districts where you all can use it and say, hey, we were successful in the Norman School District, because that's what we need. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I will get you some success story booklets too, so that you can see the success stories in other places.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Mr. Hodge.
Dr. Martin, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here, and we appreciate your positivity.
I love this work.
I am anticipating that the people who are listening to this presentation right now are feeling the same frustration that I am. We've waited a long time to hear from Solution Tree, and you have definitely helped us understand the work that you all are doing. I am wondering what your role has been with Normandy and what you understand about our district. And that we completed an assessment, but I haven't heard any conclusions from that assessment. Or what does it say about the culture of our district? Are you the right person for us to ask these questions to? Should we have someone else here? Should Ms. Kramer be here at our next meeting? When will we hear the results of the first part of your work, and who should we hear that from?
Okay, well, you absolutely should hear from Dr. Kramer. And whether you can, and maybe we could get her in on a webinar or something so she can speak to the overall picture, because she meets with all the coaches that are in all the schools. She meets with the superintendent. She meets with the person that meets with the principals. So she will have the bigger picture for you that way. So we can certainly work on that. I keep referring to the document that I'm hoping that you all have, but if you don't, I will get it to you, that has each of the schools, and it has progress under each school, and then it has action steps under each school. What we did was we looked at the beginning of the year progress report, the needs assessment, and then we did in January. So each coach at each school wrote up from the beginning to here, what are the steps that the schools have done in relation to getting the 30, 60, 90-day plans done and moving on to new steps, and what has been completed, and then what has been proposed to go from January to May. So if you don't have that document, I'll make sure you have that document. That's our written report. Our first written report comes out right now because that's what it is on that implementation.
Dr. Kramer, that's a great reminder, and we have received that report. We are responsible and accountable to the entire community. And it was my assumption that tonight we'd hear a little bit of that progress from a representative from Solution Tree to update our community. And so if we're not clear on that, I want to be clear right now that our community has questions about the investment that we've made in Solution Tree, and they deserve to hear a simplified overview of what that is, and then we can dive into questions that they may have beyond that summary. And so,
that makes perfect sense.
because I think we're going to leave here tonight understanding Solution Tree a whole lot better, but we don't understand Normandy a whole lot better.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's really what we'd like to see in our next meeting, if possible.
That would be great. We have all the data, and I apologize that I didn't have it in a way that made it.
Just can you clarify your role with Solution Tree in our district?
Yes. So in your district, I started when your district started. I started with your district because as a kind of a liaison, because I had been in Riverview Gardens. They have pulled me from that role, so I'm no longer in that role because there's a whole lot of other things I was supposed to be doing, but I love Missouri because I live here, so I wanted to do schools in Missouri. So I don't have I'm not in your schools like our coaches and Sharon and other people. And right now, I thought that what my role was to get you the knowledge to you about what Solution Tree is doing in your district. But I kind of missed the boat because I didn't synthesize the work that has been happening.
Dr. Martin, is there a person who oversees Normandy with Solution Tree, a project manager?
Her name is Susan O'Brien.
Susan O'Brien.
Yes.
Susan O'Brien.
So,
I think I've seen that name before. And Susan O'Brien is not here tonight.
Because she is and she's at our PLC summit because she also oversees Riverview Gardens, and they sent some people to the summit, so we sent Susan there.
Will Susan be here next month? That's probably not fair.
I will try to make that, no, I can make that happen. I will try to make that happen.
Okay, thank you. No more questions.
Thank you, Dr. Moore.
Thank you.
I have a question. To item number 5.02, KEI presentation and property update.
Good evening, school board, local community members and parents. I'll try to keep this very short. She came off of a 17-hour flight to be here. I really like you people.
Like you too.
I like you. I wanted to open up with just saying that it's such a pleasure to work with so many dedicated people. This school board, this genre of people, this group of folks, it's been a pleasure to represent you as your construction manager, and I'm excited about the future growth that is happening with Dr. Triplett, the school board, and all the parents that comes every night to these programs. So I think it's so important, right? The analogy that I love to use is existing. When you start digging into the work, you start finding things. And before it becomes a beautiful project, you have to find some bad things and get those things fixed. So I'm going to move on to my presentation. My name is Josh Haynes, I'm the Vice President of KEI, for this district. There's a number of folks that work on this, and I'll be giving an executive summary. So this slide here talks about property management. This is kind of an overall overarching view of the whole project. I know I went through this slide, but just to remind those who may have not seen this slide, it's talking about, you know, that the majority of the project was done in a time when it wasn't, things were not all the way thought through when the construction was actually being done in the beginning. So 86% of the change orders were due to unforeseen conditions, owner changes, and design issues. We've kind of taken this and put this in a one picture view of costs and change orders. The 7% is where I wanted to focus on, because typically when we're doing a project like this, you're looking at anywhere between 12 and 15% would also we would put together as change order management or a contingency budget. Under that by 7% with the construction and the unforeseen conditions. This is 4 different projects all in one. So this is would be an older building, but since we have a new one, this is the way we manage. The change order process. This is just still talking about the process that we've come up with on this project. It's nothing new to the industry, but it's something that we like to focus on because this is to make sure everyone, when we bring things to the bond meeting, typically that's going to be held tomorrow on Thursdays. We go through this process and make sure that everybody's clear and understands that we're negotiating on behalf of the district. Change order management process. This, I'm not going to go into the detail. I'm not going to read this out, but this is basically just kind of just a word document of what the change management process looks like. The project challenges, we've talked about this before. This is just a reminder of some of the challenges we ran into during this project. Keep this moving. Completion schedule, one of my favorite parts. So every time I come up here, I know I'm always talking about the things that are prolonging, but West Hall is complete. SCA is complete. East Hall is complete. Central Hall is substantially complete. And then the bus lot is to be determined, but I know that there's some movement on that. And then the central headquarters, that boardroom, that's still in discussion, and we're planning to keep that project moving along as well. Secure connector addition, the construction project update here is, this is just showing you that substantial completion date was met on 8/14, the first day of 2023-2024 school year. Punch is still in progress. We only have, I think, maybe 5 to 10 items on the list, and parking lot lights are completed. Central Hall improvement, so this is the Central Hall. This is the only project that's under construction mainly. So the bathroom plumbing is underway on all 3 floors. The new classroom spaces on all floors are framed out except for the band rooms. Work continues to continue on refinishing the walls throughout the floors, the 3 floors. Exterior masonry infills are underway as well. Here's a picture of some of the progress. These are 2 different examples of the construction of what's going to happen when the wall is complete. So on the right-hand side is an existing wall that has been plastered over. If you remember, we talked about doing that plaster wall on all the walls inside of the classrooms. That's what it's going to look like. That's the intent. And then the other picture is showing you what the walls will look like on the teaching wall. That's going to have all the teaching components, the screens, and different things like that. Picture of some more progress in Central Hall. This is just showing you some work being done on the HVAC system on the first floor, and then some work being done in the band room. Next slide is talking about the allocated funds that was presented to KEI from the school district. Funds allocated, overall arching, so 26 million, was allocated for Prop B. As everyone knows, there has been other funding sources that have come together to make the 44 million. That's the current total amount that's being held for this, for the projects. Cost change orders to date. Here's, this is a slide that shows the original contract, the approved change orders, the pending change orders, and where we think our best guess or our projection of where this is going to land at the end of the project. 40,289,746.28 cents. Now, keep in mind that there's some funds that are being held in that for other projects that have not come to fruition yet, like the bus lot. Almost $1 million held in that just for that. I mean, we believe that's going to be south, sorry, way south. Property update. So this is just a utilization for one of the goals that we try to meet as a company, not only for this project, but just making sure that we're keeping in mind that the minority businesses and enterprises that are local in this area are getting opportunities to work on the project. We had a goal of 25% for MBE, we're at 33%. We have a goal of 5% for women-owned businesses, and we're at 3%. Overall, our total goal, which was 35%, we are not meeting that, but we're at 17.5%. Here's a slide just talking about the savings. As your construction manager, we're looking at every cost that comes in for opportunities to save money. Mr. Humphrey can tell you that we have long conversations, sometimes laborious conversations with different people that are working on this project to make sure that we're keeping responsibility and making sure the project is done as well as we can. So these dollars are well spent. Community student outreach. You know, we have an opportunity. I come up here and I say, hey, if you would like to see the project, please come on out. We had the pleasure of meeting with Ms. Teresa and Ms. Violet, and along with William Humphrey. And we walked through all of the project. We started in the SCA, and we went over to Central Hall, and we had good discussions. There was an opportunity for them to get engaged with the students as well, which was awesome to see, because it talks about the level of appreciation that this board has for the students in this district. This is just an example of some of the things that KI is doing with the students. We've had a number of them come over to our facility. We are a fully design build firm, and we were able to show them the different aspects of a design build process. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Haynes. Ms. Pearson?
Good evening, Mr. Haynes. So, you stated that the central headquarters boardroom, third quarter of 2024, is that in the fall, or are you saying the school quarter?
Oh, well, I'm talking about quarters, the first, not just a quarter.
Okay. And then is there any way that the central hall building will have an early completion date?
Well, right now we're tracking May 31st, and that's our goal.
That's all I have for today.
Ms. Williams?
I have no questions.
Mr. Humphrey?
I have no questions.
Ms. Taylor?
Thank you for the opportunity to come and view your work.
Absolutely.
Mr. Hodge?
No question.
Thank you. I just have a question related to, have we been able to gauge any of those students that have been hosted, any of them pursuing careers in the trades?
You know, one that's been tenacious has been Kenya. To Normandy, and she has aspirations to be a civil engineer, to get into construction management. I'm going to connect with a number of different funding sources that I'm connected to, and any other student that shows that type of interest is going to get my attention specifically, and also any work that we are able to do. Yes, so there are students. That particular student is the one that I have that I can.
What's your name?
Kenya Phipps. Actually, was at the drive-through, or in the drive-through lane, and she's like, Mr. Haynes. Office on next Friday. I think there's no school on Friday, so she'll be over at our office to see our facility and get an opportunity to get exposure.
Great, thank you.
Which drive-through?
Which drive-through? She was working at the.
It goes off so many.
No, I know. It was the. You're gonna ask me that question. Like, so it was the Shake Shack out in Chesterfield.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes.
Okay.
Moving on to item number 5.03, December 2023 year-to-date financial report.
Good evening, Joint Executive Governing Board and Normandy Schools community. Great to see you all this evening. I'm kind of surprised to hear that Mr. Haynes said he got off of a 17-hour flight. Did you just say that?
I did say that.
Said, where were you at?
I was in,
Hey, my goodness, 17 hours, that's amazing. Good evening, great to see you all this evening. We just want to take a few minutes here to basically go over our financial report through December of this year. We continue in looking at our revenues and how the district is performing financially. Through December, looking at the 6 months through, we have generated roughly about $31.5 million in revenues. That's up by about a little bit over $3 million over the November year-to-date numbers of $28,489,000. So that's a fund reserve, by the way, a savings in our reserves totally of about 42.35%. So year-to-date revenues total about $26 million. That's actually up $10 million over the November year-to-date numbers of $16 million, and that's because we had our property tax assessments. We began to see the initial round of our property tax assessments coming in. So as you all know, you set the tax levy back in October, and St. Louis County began to bill for property tax receipts. In December, we received roughly 3 payments that basically equated to several $1 million. And so we saw revenues coming in. We actually have a second month of that. You'll see that in January. The month just ended in January. In December and January of each year, by the way, property tax assessments are collected largely. So we receive the influx of our property taxes largely in those 2 specific months. December, again, we received that first huge allotment of revenues coming in, which boosted our financial position. Associated expenditures finished at about $31.7 million through December of 2023, which was up $6.9 million. So expenditures for the month, year-to-date through December of 2023 were up $6.9 million, but that was more than offset by $10 million of revenues coming in, largely on the property tax receipts. So again, our fund reserves, our fund balances went up. Again, our total fund reserves through December went up by about $17.3 million. That's just in the operating, what we consider our operating funds, which are our teachers fund and our general funds. So we saw revenues in our fund reserve savings going up to about $17.3 million in the operating fund, which is pretty solid, pretty strong. That was up, that reserve by over $1 million over the November year-to-date totals of about $16.1 million. That represents about a 31.57% operating fund reserve at that point. So as previously cited to you all before, the state requires a 3% fund reserve. We are well over that year-to-date. We believe that a strong fund reserve comes in at about 15 to 20%. And again, we are well over 30% there in our operating funds. And then our overall savings were at 42.35%, again, through December 31st of 2023. And so this is just a synopsis, again, of where we're at. We began the fiscal year from July 1, 2023. We had banked roughly about $37 million in fund reserves or savings. We've had, again, revenues through December 2023 of $26 million, expenditures of $31.7 million, which brings our ending fund reserves to, as of December 31st, 2023, to 31.5, almost $31.6 million. So again, that's pretty solid. When we look at our budget, you look at the adopted expenditure budget for the year, that's roughly $67,276,359. When you look at the ending fund reserves of $31.6 million that are divided by the $67,276,359 budget, that's a 46.91% overall fund balance reserve in all of our accounts. Again, our operating fund reserves, just again in the general and the teachers fund, in those funds, it's 33.86%. So you see that highlighted there at the bottom. This was just basically a picture that shows, again, where we're receiving our monies and where we are spending, our monies. So we see that largely a lot of our monies come in from local sources, largely on property tax assessments, and we spend, on the spending side, the bulk of our expenditures are in salaries and benefits to our personnel. And then finally, as far as wanted to note that we will be holding a budget workshop actually a week from tomorrow on the 21st. We'll have a special meeting that's an open session meeting for you, the board, and the community to basically discuss our budget and what we're going to plan to do for the upcoming fiscal year. So we're excited about that, and we'll be having a healthy discussion about what our plans are. So that is on the horizon. We'll be talking about things like the financial cliff. We'll be talking about our revenue sources, expenditure issues and challenges. All of those things will be going into the discussion that we'll be having with you and the community next week. And so that is, in a nutshell, our financial report for the month, year to date. And at this time, I want to entertain any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Ms. Pearson?
The only question I have is, what is the location for the workshop?
Great question. We are going to be having, the location is going to be at basically our central offices on the first floor of the boardroom area there. We'll have that set up for you all and also for the community.
Ms. Williams? Can you speak to the mic?
I feel so confident around the finances when you're standing there. My question is, I heard a lot about it a while ago. I didn't hear you say anything about that. Are we over the cliff? Or does the cliff not exist now?
The cliff exists, and we are moving toward the cliff, but we are preparing for that. So specifically, the financial cliff being that we're going to basically no longer get the stimulus funding. Come September 30th of this year, we have to use up or expend the stimulus funding. So that's monies coming in this case in the form of what we call ESSER 3. Those monies are going to have to be expended, and we're no longer going to be getting ESSER or stimulus funding. As you know, the federal government was providing and helping school districts get through the COVID-19 pandemic. There were monies that were sent in the forms of CARE Act monies, COVID-19 relief monies, ESSER 1, 2, and 3 phase monies, and those monies will end. We're shoring up for that, we're preparing for that by setting aside or reclassifying some of our expenditures. We've been putting some of our staffing under ESSER funding, and we know that with that money going away, we've got to put staff in other buckets or pockets, and we're going to talk about that. So, great question, Ms. Williams. That is going to be something we're going to talk about next week as well.
Mr. Humphrey?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. I think as we move forward towards the budget workshop, hopefully part of your presentation will look at the teacher compensation models comparative to other school districts. Getting teachers in front of kids is going to become a challenge, and we have to figure out fiscally how can we compete with the surrounding school districts that have the same interests for teachers. So hopefully we'll have some of that discussion in the coming meeting, and that's pretty much all I have.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Humphrey. Ms. Taylor?
Thank you, Dr. Brooks. You used different terms. I'm hoping that you will have some definitions for those so we'll understand exactly
Yes,
what all
I will.
those are. I mean, because we can understand the basics, but there are a lot of terms that you do use. And I'm the type of person, if I don't understand a word, I'll look it up because I need to know what it means. And
Sure.
I think that'll be very helpful.
Thank you. And let me say this too, Ms. Taylor. Thank you so much for that comment. But anytime you feel that if there's a comment or something that isn't clear, that I've not made clear, an acronym or whatever, because of the language that I use, being in the finance world, just stop me, and I will explain that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Again, we appreciate your presentations and the information. Two questions. You talk about fund balance reserves. Should I make the assumption that our lowest percentage for our fund balance occurs somewhere around December or January? And at the lowest, what has that been during the year? And so can you answer that question for me?
Yes, sir, great question. Normally what happens is we receive, again, the influx of our monies largely in December and January, as I mentioned. And so that's when we really build our fund reserves. So at the end of January, you'll see probably our highest level of fund reserves. But then we begin to spend down, because what happens is we may have more expenditures in the form of salaries that will exceed the revenues that we are taking in from, say, February all the way through to November. So what happens is through the course of the year, that fund reserve begins to come down. But then all of a sudden, it gets replenished back in, say, December.
Yeah, my question is, when is it at its lowest, and what has it been at its lowest in the past year?
It's in its lowest, it should be normally in November, but this year we actually had a kind of a little bit of an anomaly because of some of the stimulus funding that we had with ESSER funds. And so really that number was actually a little bit higher. It was at over 30%, say November. It was a little bit high. That was kind of an issue, kind of a positive problem that we had. But a couple things that were happening, we actually, we took in more funds from ESSER funding, and we were spending a little bit less, okay? So we had a higher reserve in those, say, October, November months that we would normally have. Now, I will say this to that, Mr. Hodge, this is an important thing to say, and we'll talk about this also next week. What is a healthy fund reserve? I'm looking at a projection of keeping us solid in between 15 to 20%, okay? That's a solid fund reserve. And so we will be looking at, some scenarios and some things around that. What's a realistic fund reserve where we, are operating or where we're at, say, in November before we begin to get our fund reserves replenished?
That's great. This next question may be a question that we need to address with the superintendent, but I think that it might be appropriate for us to talk about in this audience. We're approaching the possibility of open enrollment, and it could happen very soon. I think this should be a part of our discussion on the 21st. Do we need to have someone at that meeting to talk about the impact of that on our district as we move forward? That's the question. I don't know, it's kind of unfair for me to ask you that now because we haven't had a chance to discuss that. But it is something I think that is on our parents and our community's mind. What would the impact of open enrollment have on our district? And is that appropriate for us to talk about on the 21st? Or should we have an additional?
If I were to speak to that, and I don't know if Dr. Triplet wants to speak to that, but that is a conversation that's pretty important, and we can perhaps speak about it a little bit next week, but I think that demands its own, form, its own meeting with you, the board.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge. I would just comment, a couple comments. One, in preparation for next week, sourcing and uses statement for the ESSER funds.
Sure.
How much we got and what do we use it for? And reporting that we have to do to make sure that, we're compliant. Ignoring the ESSER funds, our fund balance, I think, as a follow-up to Mr. Hodges' question, as in like 14, you're saying 15, 20% is where you'd like to be, but where have we been historically?
Sure. We'll have information on that as well. So it's been historically probably running more like 15 to 20%, but we've had some lower years going back several years.
Then one last in preparation for that, because I think that is an important discussion. Not sure how far we'll get next week as it relates to open enrollment and the impact. But to the extent that it probably will be a separate session, having some sort of impact analysis of that. And I presume we kind of have some understanding of that because we got, we had some experience with that in the past, but
yes,
having some sort of impact analysis on what that could potentially mean, so that we can forward think resources.
Great suggestion.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. All right, moving on to item number 6, for discussion and action, additional board meeting. I'll yield the floor to Ms. Pearson.
Good evening. With all of the information that we received, it was under my understanding that additional board meetings would be needed for our board and our community. There's a lot of information that I believe 1 month meeting cannot cover. Yes, there will be transparency with the community, the parents, administration, but I feel that additional board meetings are needed. 1 board meeting per month cannot move our district in the desire that we need to be in. Our district is we're in a crisis, and something needs to be done. Not today, not tomorrow, but today. So it was my proposal to have additional board meetings for our board members.
Let's continue the discussion. Ms. Williams, anything to add? It's been moved, probably second, that we have another additional meeting per month. Any discussion? Discussion?
Other than to say that, what Teresa had to say, I fully support that because we have a lot of things that we really need to attend to. Intentional about how we look at it and how we proceed forward. We have to be very strategic around our discussions and whatever decisions we're going to make. So I fully support that recommendation.
I support the consideration of this additional meeting. I believe that it should be a part of a planned yearly series. I believe some years ago that the board did meet twice a year during the academic school year, and over the summer they went to 1 meeting per month. And so before we approve this or vote on this, I would that we amend the movement to include to amend with calendar of monthly events that covers the year with additional meetings, 2 additional meetings a month of those years, of those months.
Just clarify.
One of the items we currently have on the calendar that we haven't gotten to yet is the annual governance calendar. And so in that, it spells out various activities. So what I heard him saying is that we need to do an addendum to that this annual governance calendar to figure out what are those additional meetings going to be, and more specifically, what are we targeting for discussion in those meetings. Right? I support that as well.
So is it augmenting or amending the motion that's on the floor by way of a second meeting and then revising the governance calendar to include it?
Well,
so I want clarity on the motion.
The original motion was simply to adopt the fact that we need additional board meetings.
Right.
And second on that.
Right.
And so he was asking if the original person that made the motion would simply clarify the motion by specifically saying what would happen during each of those respective meetings. So that it's more of a planning thing.
That's not what would happen it's not what would happen, but can we include that in the annual governance calendar so that we consider additional meetings?
Yes, it could be included.
So so whoever made the motion.
Sheila made the motion.
So Sheila, your motion's being amended. So, all right. So can we just restate the motion so that we're all clear on what it is?
Okay, I'm going to have a second meeting per month that would be included as Those meetings will be included on the governance calendar.
Is it accurate?
Now, it still locks us into 2 meetings every month of the year.
So
You don't want that.
you want more than 2 meetings, is that
I
what you're saying?
want us to plan the calendar with additional meetings in mind.
Okay, so you're stating that addition to the 1 meeting that we have per month in the calendar, we have that additional meeting that I'm proposing, correct?
Yeah, well, what he's actually saying is,
He'll make a
oh,
motion.
okay.
You make a motion.
So we know, we got this, we already.
We got a motion.
We got a
Sit down.
We got a vote on the motion.
I withdraw my motion. I withdraw my motion.
We
I
can
can't
vote on
do
it,
that.
and then we can just vote it down, and I'll restate another motion.
How about we keep your motion, and then we'll come back with, take, some more specifics.
Okay.
So the motion is on the floor, is that we have an additional meeting per month.
It's been motioned and seconded.
And it's been said, so no more discussion on that, right? All right, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same privilege? Okay, let the records reflect the ayes have it. All right, so now, to continue the discussion, what were you saying?
I just want to make sure that we didn't agree to have 2 meetings every month, 12 months of the year.
So we have a board governance calendar. And it sounds like we're going to revise that calendar.
Yes.
Or actually be more specific on that calendar, that it's going to be 2 meetings per month, right?
He's questioning whether or not we need to rigidly have 2 meetings per month. He's simply saying, let's identify how many topics we need to deal with. Is that not what you're saying?
That's not
Well,
what
tell
I'm
me what you're saying.
That's okay. If we're agreeing to have 24 meetings per year, right? That's what I'm questioning.
Okay.
24 meetings
So
per
you
year.
think during the summer, after school is out, maybe that's what you're saying, or what?
I'm saying we need to have that discussion of whether or not we need to have 24 meetings a year.
Oh, I think we can say, when we get together, we will not have a second meeting.
How about we do this?
That's great. That's great.
What?
That's great. That works. We can always choose not to have that second meeting. The brilliance of Sheila has spoken. I'm good.
There you go.
So I think it should take a little bit more leadership in this regard, because I think